Today, I'm going to tell you the story of one of those legends, which took place in a small, isolated town called Maple Hollow in 1998. What started as a simple adventure among friends quickly transformed into a macabre nightmare, where the line between myth and reality blurred in a terrifying way. My name is Raven Shadowmere, and this is Midnight Mysteries. If you're fascinated by stories of horror, mystery, and the inexplicable, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you won't miss any of our narratives. And believe me, you'll want to stay until the end, because what happened in that forest reveals a disturbing secret that will change your perception of what is real and what is not now. Get ready to discover what happens when legends come to life. From the Hillbilly Horror Stories series. The aroma of fresh coffee and freshly baked cakes filled the small cafe in Maple Hollow, where my friends and I gathered to discuss our upcoming adventures. The soft light streaming through the windows reflected off the wooden tables, and the murmurs of conversations around us created a warm, almost comforting atmosphere. But at the same time, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, as if something was about to happen. Have you guys heard about the curse of the hillbillies? Lucas began, leaning forward, his eyes sparkling with a mix of excitement and fear. He had always been the most intrigued by urban legends, and I knew this particular story fascinated him. Curse of the hillbillies? Sarah raised an eyebrow, ever the skeptic. That's just another story to scare tourists. There's nothing true about it. Oh, believe me, Lucas insisted, gesturing animatedly. They say that those who camp in the forest never return. The forest feeds on fear and distrust. That's why the locals avoid that place. Mia, sitting next to me, laughed and shook her head. Do you really believe in that, Lucas? Whenever you talk about ghosts, you sound like a scared little kid. And what if it's true? Jake, who had been quiet until then, chimed in. He loved horror stories and was known for his knack for telling scary tales. I want to go. Just imagine camping in a haunted forest and telling stories at night. It would be epic. Epic or suicidal? Sarah retorted, crossing her arms. I could see she was starting to get annoyed with the idea. We can't just ignore the warnings from the locals. They live there and know what they're talking about. Oh, but what if it's just a story to keep people away? Lucas challenged, his enthusiasm growing. I bet you're all scared. Let's camp there and demystify this legend. I'm not scared, Sarah replied, firmer than I expected. I'm just being sensible. We don't need to get involved with this. The debate continued. But deep down, I knew everyone was excited about the idea of going. There was something irresistible about facing the unknown, and adrenaline was starting to surge through my veins. Finally, after much prodding, Sarah relented. Nah, fine, let's go camping, but if something happens, I'm going to say I told you so. Jake's laughter echoed in the air, and soon we were all making plans about what to bring. The conversation turned lighter, full of jokes and laughter. All right, what should we bring? I asked, trying to keep the vibe upbeat. Tents, food, flashlights, and a ton of marshmallows. And a first aid kit, in case you hurt yourself trying to make a fire. Mia joked, rolling her eyes. Hey, I'm an excellent tent builder, Jake exclaimed, making exaggerated gestures with his hands. Besides, I'll make sure we have scary stories to tell at night. As long as they're not about hillbillies, I'm in, Sarah said, a mischievous smile on her lips. When the conversation began to drift to other topics, like what to do in town, and where to buy the best supplies, I couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. The idea of camping in the forest, surrounded by rumors of spirits and curses, was starting to get to me. But what worried me the most were the hostile looks I had sensed from the locals when we entered the town. The next morning, we set off for Maple Hollow. The road was winding, surrounded by tall, dense trees. When we finally arrived, A strange atmosphere enveloped us. The locals watched us with suspicion, as if they knew we were intruders in their territory. "Look at those old men," Lucas murmured, discreetly pointing to a group of men who were watching us. "They look like they're about to kick us out." Tension rose when an elderly man approached us, his dark gaze fixed on us. "You should turn back before it's too late," he warned, his voice hoarse and filled with gravity. "We're just camping," I replied, trying to sound confident. "We're not harming anyone. The forest is no place for you," the old man insisted, his penetrating gaze sending a chill down my spine. "Don't be fooled by the stories. The truth is much scarier." As he walked away, a heavy silence settled among us. The tension in the air was palpable, and even with the jokes and laughter, I knew something was about to happen. I just didn't know how dark and terrifying it would be. The breeze in the clearing was cool, and the campfire crackled, casting dancing shadows around us. I felt invigorated, the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I looked at the smiling faces of my friends. "All right, who's starting?" I asked, trying to break the ice while tossing more wood onto the fire. Jake, ever the provocateur, raised his hand. "I have the perfect story. It's about the curse of the Hillbillies." His voice was filled with enthusiasm, and I couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, you're not going to tell the same old story again, are you?" Mia rolled her eyes, but her smile betrayed her interest. "I want something new, something that'll give me nightmares." "Hold on. Do you want nightmares or not?" Ethan joked, and we all laughed. Jake began to narrate, his deep voice echoing into the night. "They say that many years ago, a group of hillbillies was cursed by a stranger. They got lost in the forest and were never seen again. The legend says that whoever camps here ends up joining them." His voice turned into a whisper, sending a shiver down my spine. "That's just a story, Jake. Do you really think something like that could be true?" Sarah, ever the skeptic, shook her head as she grabbed the marshmallow to... "I want to see how brave you are when night falls," Jake teased. I could feel the tension building, but there was also an excitement in the air. As night deepened, laughter faded, and glances became more anxious. Strange noises began echoing through the forest. "Or a vengeful spirit," Jake added with a nervous smile, but his expression quickly turned serious. I looked around, and the atmosphere felt charged. The firelight flickered, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. "We should check it out. What do you guys think?" I suggested, trying to keep my courage. The others exchanged nervous glances, but curiosity seemed to win out. "Let's go in pairs. That way, if something happens, we can help each other," Mia suggested, her voice quivering slightly. We ended up deciding that Mia and Jake would stick together, while Ethan and Sarah would pair up. I, on the other hand, would stay silent, observing what happened. As the pairs moved away, I felt a chill run down my spine. The silence was almost deafening, except for the sounds of the forest. Then, out of nowhere, I heard distant laughter, a sharp, eerie laugh, as if someone was having fun at our expense. "Did you guys hear that?" I asked, and Ethan's expression turned grave. He nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the trees. "Yeah, what was that?" He looked at Sarah, who was pale. "We should go after them," she suggested, but her voice was laden with hesitation. "Let's be quick. I don't want to stay here too long," I said, trying to seem more confident than I actually felt. The thought of separating made me uneasy, but curiosity was stronger. We walked toward the sound, and the forest seemed to close in around us, the trees bending as if they were watching us. The laughter grew louder, and I felt a knot in my stomach. "Jake! Mia!" I shouted, but the only response was the echo of my own voice. Finally, we came across the abandoned cabin, a weathered structure covered in moss. "What do you think? Should we go in?" Ethan asked, hesitantly. Fear danced in his eyes, and I could feel the same fear rising within me. "It's better than staying out here," I said, forcing a smile. "Maybe they're inside." As soon as we crossed the creaky door, the atmosphere changed. The air felt heavier, and a sense of discomfort enveloped us. What would we find inside? The answer was about to reveal itself, and I didn't know if I was ready for it. The atmosphere inside the abandoned cabin was thick, as if the air was infused with the history of those who had been there before us. Jake and I moved slowly, the lantern light casting dancing shadows on the rotting wooden walls. The smell of mold was almost unbearable, and each step I took seemed to echo the warnings we heard earlier. "Mia, look at this!" Jake exclaimed, his voice reverberating in the oppressive silence. He was pointing at a table cluttered with old objects, covered by a layer of dust and cobwebs. As I approached, I saw a series of black and white photographs, haphazardly framed. The faces in the pictures seemed to be smiling, but the sadness in their eyes was undeniable. Below the photos, a dusty diary caught my attention. "Do you think this could be related to the curse?" I asked, already dreading the answer. Jake, ever curious, didn't hesitate to open the diary. The pages were yellowed, and the handwriting was erratic, as if the person had written in a hurry or under great stress. "Look at this," it says here. "Those who come to the forest in search of adventure must know there is a price to pay. The spirits of the hillbillies do not rest until they receive what was taken from them." Jake read aloud. My heart raced. "Jake, this isn't just a legend. This is real." My voice trembled, and I could feel adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Wait, there's more. It talks about a sacrifice ritual. It says that one chosen must be offered to the forest so that the others can escape." Jake continued, his eyes wide. Fear began to take hold of me. "This can't be happening. We need to find the others and tell them." Meanwhile, Ethan and Sarah were in the forest, unaware that what they were about to find could be even more terrifying. They had wandered a bit, drawn by an inexplicable feeling that seemed to call to them. "Ethan, do you feel this?" Sarah asked, looking around with wide eyes. "It's like the forest is alive." Ethan nodded, his gaze fixed on an altar covered with strange symbols, carved into stones that seemed centuries old. "These symbols, they're not normal," Ethan murmured, trying to decipher what was before them. "I just hope Mia and Jake are okay. It's been a while since they left." The atmosphere around them grew heavier, and the feeling of being watched intensified. The silence of the forest seemed to turn into whispers, as if invisible entities were discussing them. When we finally reunited, the tension was palpable. The expression on Jake's face and the diary in his hands said it all. "We need to talk. What we found might be more serious than we thought," he began, his voice serious. Ethan and Sarah exchanged apprehensive glances. "What do you mean by that?" Ethan asked, crossing his arms. "The hillbillies. The curse is real. They demand a sacrifice, and it's linked to a ritual. I don't know how, but I feel like we're in danger," Jake explained, his voice trembling slightly. Mia, with her heart racing, looked at her friends. "We need to go back to town, warn the locals, and get out of this forest before it's too late." "Do you really think they'll believe us, after everything we've heard?" Sarah asked, hesitant. Doubt hung in the air, but desperation began to take hold of me. "We have no other choice. If this curse is real, then we need to do something before it's too late." Our faces were marked by worry, and the feeling of being watched wouldn't fade. The forest seemed to close in around us, and a pang of fear settled in our hearts. What lurked in the shadows could be more terrible than any of us could imagine. Time was running out, and the only certainty we had was that the curse of the hillbillies wasn't just a story to scare the unsuspecting. It was a reality that now enveloped us, and we were about to discover how far we would go to escape it. The darkness grew denser with each step we took through the forest. The silence, once comforting, now sounded threatening, and shadows danced around us. I felt like we were being swallowed by a cloak of darkness, and the idea that the curse of the hillbillies could be real began to settle into my mind. "Ethan, are you sure we're going the right way?" I asked, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. "Of course. I recognize this path," Ethan replied, but his voice didn't convey the same confidence. He glanced around, as if expecting something or someone to appear from the shadows. Fear was starting to grip us, and I felt the tension between us growing. "This isn't normal," Mia said, looking around with wide eyes. "We should have found the trail back by now, but it seems like we're moving further away. Maybe we should have listened to the warnings from the locals," Jake commented, his voice laced with panic. "I think the curse is coming true. We're lost, and now I don't know what to do." Jake's words echoed in my head. As the darkness enveloped us, I wanted to disbelieve the legend, but the feeling that something was wrong intensified. The trees seemed to close in around us, and the whispers that were once only distant noises now became a terrifying chorus surrounding us. "I think we should stick together and try to find a safe place," I suggested, trying to remain calm. "What if the curse is really true?" Mia asked, desperation evident in her voice. "What if we're being watched?" "We can't let fear take over," Ethan said, trying to reclaim leadership. "We need to focus and find our way back." But as we continued, the situation grew increasingly desperate. The darkness seemed to shift, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there were eyes watching us. Then, Ethan suddenly stopped. "Wait, look at this." He pointed to the ground, where a strange mark stood out in the dirt. "It's like someone was dragged away," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. Fear spread through the group, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "We need to get out of here," I pleaded, but the words came out more like a scream than a request. "Calm down, everyone. Let's analyze this," Ethan said, but his voice was already heavy with uncertainty. "If someone was dragged away, we could be in danger. Are you telling me we should stay here and investigate?" Jake asked, incredulity in his voice. "That's insane. We need to leave now." The discussion began to heat up, and I realized that the friendship that had always united us was starting to crumble. "Mia, why did you suggest we camp here? You knew this was a bad idea," Ethan accused, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. The tension between them was palpable, and Jake looked ready to explode at any moment. "You're being ridiculous. No one knew this would happen," Mia shouted, her voice breaking. I wanted to intervene, but I felt that any word might make the situation worse. The accusations flying back and forth only heightened our panic, and the sound of whispers in the forest grew louder, as if the shadows were feeding on our fear. "We need to unite to get through this," I finally said, trying to calm the tempers. "If there's even a chance that the curse is real, we have to stick together. Let's focus on finding our way back." "I agree," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "But we need to do it now. We can't stay here another second." The tension still hung over us, but the idea that something malevolent could be lurking gave us a new sense of urgency. Looking at the ground again, I noticed that the marks led in a certain direction. "Let's follow these marks. They might lead us out," I suggested, and everyone reluctantly agreed. As we followed the marks, fear and distrust continued to accompany us. The darkness seemed to close in around us, and the forest, once full of life, now presented itself as a labyrinth of fear and uncertainties. Shadows danced and twisted, and I wondered if we would be able to escape the curse that loomed over Maple Hollow. My breath was quickening, and a cold knot in my stomach made every step we took in the forest feel like a risky decision. "Ethan, are you sure we're following the marks correctly?" I asked, hesitantly. Fear began to seep into me, and the darkness seemed to tighten around us. "I think so, Mia. But..." Ethan hesitated, glancing back as if he expected to see the hooded figure again. "That thing, it wasn't normal." "I can't believe this is happening," Sarah murmured, her voice quivering. We should have listened to the warnings. We were foolish to ignore all of this. But what else could we have done? Staying at the clearing wasn't an option, and now we're all lost, Ethan replied, frustration seeping through. The group was divided between the need to find our way back and the urge to run far from the figure haunting us. Come on, we need to regroup. If we stick together, maybe we can face this, suggested Lucas, trying to maintain calm. However, the tension in the air was palpable. The shadows danced around us, and the forest's whispers seemed to intensify. What if the curse is real? What if those who disappear can't come back? Mia questioned, despair beginning to seep into her voice. I don't want to end up like them. Calm down, Mia. We need to keep our heads cool. Let's meet in an open area where we can see each other, Ethan replied, trying to act as the group leader. But, as we all knew, trust was dissipating quickly. The forest felt alive, and the sensation of being watched was undeniable. Just as we tried to follow the marks, the hooded figure appeared again, lurking between the trees. An involuntary scream escaped my lips, and in an instant, adrenaline took over. Run, I shouted, not thinking twice. The group scattered in different directions, and I found myself running with Lucas, not daring to look back. The sound of our feet snapping branches and crunching dry leaves was deafening. Did you see it watching us? He asked, breathless. Yes, and it terrifies me, I replied, trying to control the rising panic in my chest. We need to find the others. As we ran, the shadows seemed to close in, and before we knew it, we stumbled upon a clearing. Here, let's stop for a moment and try to call the others, I suggested, trying to catch my breath. Sarah, Ethan, Lucas shouted, his voice echoing through the forest. The silence that followed was oppressive. Do you think they're okay? He asked, concern reflected in his eyes. I hope so, but we need to be quick. The figure, it could be right behind us at any moment, I replied, feeling a shiver run down my spine. Meanwhile, Ethan and Sarah, separated, were having their own experiences. The atmosphere around them felt dense, as if the forest was alive and watching them. Ethan, did you see that? Sarah whispered, pointing to a shadow that seemed to writhe between the trees. Yes, I saw it, and I didn't like it one bit, he replied, his gaze fixed ahead. But as they watched, they began to have disturbing visions. Missing people with vacant stares surged in their memories. Sarah, this can't be real. We need to go back. We need to find the others, he exclaimed, panic filling his voice. The sense of desperation spread among us as we regrouped in the clearing. Did you see that? What is happening here? I asked, trying to understand the gravity of the situation. It's as if the forest is trying to show us something, like we're part of a story we don't understand, Ethan said, his voice trembling. We need to do something. If the curse is real, maybe we need to perform some kind of ritual to break it, Lucas suggested, his determination growing as fear transformed into urgency. A ritual? Sarah questioned, looking at us with a mix of disbelief and hope. What if that's the only way we can get out of here? Then let's find out what we need to do. We can't just stand still while the curse takes hold, I said, feeling a surge of courage. The group, though shaken, began to unite again, knowing that only together could we face what lay ahead. The night grew increasingly oppressive, and the storm forming in the sky felt like a harbinger of something terrible. As dark clouds gathered and lightning tore through the sky, we four friends stood together in a clearing, with the only light coming from the dwindling campfire, struggling against the wind. The ritual we decided to perform was our only hope of breaking the curse. But the heavy atmosphere around us made that increasingly impossible. Come on, Ethan, are you sure this will work? Mia asked, her voice trembling. Her wide eyes reflected the glow of the fire and the growing fear in our hearts. We have to try. If we don't do this now, we'll never get out of here, I replied, trying to convey confidence. But the truth was, I was terrified too. The hooded figure we had seen earlier seemed to float between the trees, and with each flash of lightning, its outline became more vivid and threatening. "What if we're just feeding the curse?" Lucas interjected, his tone heavy with rising despair. "We might be doing everything wrong." "Enough!" I shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. "We need to unite. The curse feeds on our fear and distrust. If we're not strong, we'll end up like those who disappeared." The storm finally broke, and the rain began to pour down heavily, beating violently against the dry ground of the forest. However, as we started to chant the words we found in the diary, a supernatural force seemed to manifest in response. Howling winds surrounded the clearing, and the hooded figure appeared before us, its presence almost palpable, as if the darkness itself had come to life. "You don't understand, do you?" The figure spoke, its voice echoing like a distant whisper. "The curse is not just a story. It feeds off you, your fears, your insecurities. And one of you is a descendant of the Hillbillies." Our gazes locked, and panic started to take over. "No, this can't be true," Sarah shouted, her eyes welling with tears. "This is madness." "You know it's true, Sarah," the figure continued, pointing at us one by one. "The choice of who must sacrifice has already been made. Who are you carrying the weight of the past?" "I'm nobody. I'm not," Jake shouted, beginning to panic. "This can't be true. I don't want to do this." "Jake, calm down," I said, trying to soothe him, but the tension in the air was palpable. The hooded figure began to approach, and I realized that each of us was grappling with our own demons. "I can't let this happen," Mia said, her voice firm, though visibly trembling. "Whoever it is, we can't let it choose." "But what if it's true? What if one of us has to sacrifice themselves to save the others?" Lucas questioned, doubt resonating in his words. It was then that Jake, with a strange light in his eyes, stepped forward. "If it's to save you, then I'll volunteer," he said, sincerity shining through his face. "Maybe I can break this curse, maybe I can save you." "Jake, no, you can't do this," I exclaimed, feeling my heart sink. "This is madness. It's the only way," he replied, his voice steady. "I can't let you suffer for something I didn't control. I'm the chosen one, aren't I?" His words echoed in our minds, but before we could react, the hooded figure extended a hand, and a light enveloped Jake. He began to drift away, and a sense of despair and inevitability engulfed us. "Jake, no!" I shouted, but it was too late. In an instant, the figure vanished, taking Jake with it. As the storm raged around us, what remained was a deathly silence. And in the blink of an eye, the forest transformed, as if time itself had stopped. What was left of us were memories, and a distant echo of the laughter we once shared. Maple Hollow would continue to be haunted by the curse, and we, friends, were now just another legend, lost in the darkness of the forest, eternally condemned to wander. At the end of our journey, we are forced to face a harsh reality. Legends often carry more than mere superstitions. The curse of the Hillbillies in Maple Hollow was not just a story to scare the naive. It was a dark truth, rooted in the past of that place, and in the secrets its inhabitants tried, in vain, to bury. As we, the curious ones, paid the price for challenging the unknown, we were reminded that some stories should never be told, and certain mysteries never unraveled. Jake's sacrifice has left us marked forever, and his desperate choice to save the group not only sealed his fate, but also ensured that Maple Hollow remains shrouded in shadows and whispers for those who dare to venture there. But before we wrap up, tell me, do you believe that all urban legends are merely products of human imagination? Or do you think there are hidden truths waiting to be uncovered? Leave your comment below, and share what you would have done if you were in our place that fateful night. Fear can be our greatest enemy, but it can also be what keeps us alive. And now, let me ask you, how far would you be willing to go to unravel a mystery. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications, and give us a thumbs up. Every interaction helps keep Midnight Mysteries alive and brings more chilling and mysterious stories like this one. And if you want to go further, share this video with your friends. After all, who knows how many of them would be willing to camp in a cursed forest? I sincerely thank you for staying with me until the end. You, who love to explore the unknown, are the heart of this channel. And remember, some stories are told to entertain us, but others, like this one, may be closer to reality than we'd like to admit. Now, before you go, take a look at our end screen for more videos that will get under your skin and make you think twice before challenging the unknown. A twig snapped in the distance and my heart raced. It was just an animal, right? Ethan said, trying to sound calm, but his voice betrayed his anxiety.